Just 3 minutes ago, no one would have imagined seeing such an expression on Kash Patel's face. He was always the same, controlled, measured, someone who never lost his composure, even when faced with difficult questions. After all, he was a name that had been through hundreds of court cases. But then that moment came. Jared Moskowitz opened the red folder. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. That slight hesitation on Patel's face, that's where it all began. In that second, the balance shifted. If you missed this moment, you really missed out. Because in the coming days, this image will be talked about everywhere. If you want to be the first to see moments like this, subscribe now. It was 2:53 p.m. in the Senate Judiciary Committee room, a standard oversight hearing. Kash Patel sat at the witness table, his usual confidence intact. Navy suit, upright posture, prepared testimony. 3 lawyers beside him, files in front of him. He had testified before Congress 100 times. He knew the game. The first 90 minutes passed like that. Senators asked questions. Patel gave diplomatic answers. Ongoing investigations. Classified information. The standard Washington dance. No one thought anything would be different. Then Jared Moskowitz took the microphone, a Democrat from Florida, but more importantly, a former federal prosecutor, someone who knew how to question witnesses and present evidence. Director Patel, Moskowitz began calmly, I want to talk about the Jeffrey Epstein files. Patel nodded. Of course, because talking about the Epstein files seemed safe. It was a topic that had been discussed for years. Standard answers would be given. But Moskowitz was prepared. And he had something in his hand. He pulled a thick red folder from his desk. It was heavy. It was marked with yellow sticky notes. It was dense. In this folder, he said, are documents from the Epstein investigation. From the FBI's own records. Their classification was lifted last night. Patel's face tightened slightly, but he was still in control. Moskowitz pulled out the first document. This, he said, is a visitor log from Epstein's Palm Beach home, dated March 14th, 2003. He read the first 3 names. No one recognized them. The 4th name was a hedge fund manager. Already a known figure, nothing explosive. Not yet. Then Moskowitz read the 5th name. Silence. Sudden, sharp, absolute silence. 50 people held their breath at the same time. Director Patel, Moskowitz continued, his voice now harsher. This name appears 17 times in these records. 17 documented visits over 6 months. He raised the document toward the camera. And yet, when Congress requested these documents 2 years ago, they were classified as highly sensitive. Why? Patel reached for his water glass. His hand was steady, but his hesitation spoke volumes. Classification decisions are complex, he said. Confidentiality, ongoing investigations. There are no ongoing investigations, Moskowitz retorted sharply. Epstein is dead. Maxwell is in prison. This isn't about protecting an investigation. It's about protecting powerful people. Then Moskowitz pulled out the second document. Thicker, officially titled. This, he said slowly, is a flight manifest from Epstein's private jet, dated July 22nd, 2000. He paused. The date settled into the room. There are 4 names on the passenger list. 3 have been made public over the years. The 4th has been redacted every time. It was redacted under your authority, Director Patel. Patel opened his mouth, but Moskowitz raised his hand. I'm not finished yet. This censored name appears on 12 separate flight manifests. 12 flights to Palm Beach, New York, the U.S. Virgin Islands. He looked directly at Patel. The camera locked onto the director's face. That censorship was lifted last night. For the first time, The American public can see who was on these flights. He turned the document toward the cameras. Even in the standard definition C-SPAN feed, the signature at the bottom was visible. Within 90 seconds, social media exploded. The name trended before Moskowitz even spoke. Patel's lawyer leaned forward and whispered urgently, but Patel shook his head. "A congressman," he said, his voice now quieter. "Flight manifests from 20 years ago, without additional context." "Let me provide context," Moskowitz interrupted. He pulled out a third document. This was the testimony of a woman who worked at Epstein's Manhattan home between 1999 and 2002, given to the FBI in 2009. He read from the document. "I saw him at least 5 or 6 times in person. Always in the evenings, always with Jeffrey. They seemed like old friends." The gallery gasped. Not figuratively, audibly. The sound of 50 people realizing they had witnessed something irrevocable. "Director Patel," Moskowitz placed the document on the table. "This statement has been in the FBI files for 16 years. Why was it classified?" Patel started to respond, but stopped himself midway. "Senator," meaning member of Congress. A small mistake. But it was deadly in that room. Blood in the water. The correction hung longer than any accusation. Subscribe if you want to follow along, because this is just the beginning, and there's much more to come. The FBI doesn't classify to protect individuals, Patel said carefully. Protocols exist to protect sensitive information. And your protocols protected this individual, Moskowitz retorted sharply. And we both know why. It was no longer a surveillance theater. It was a confrontation. Moskowitz didn't stop. He went back to the red folder and pulled out another document. Then another. He laid them out in front of Patel like evidence before a jury. "These documents were requested by Congress 2 years ago," he said. "Each time, they were denied for the same reason: classification." Patel listened silently. His expression was controlled, but he was no longer confident. His breathing had changed, subtle but noticeable, measured breaths to maintain control under pressure. "Director Patel," Moskowitz continued, "you never reported any ongoing investigation into these individuals during your tenure. Yet the classification remained in place." Patel settled into his chair. "The absence of an active investigation does not automatically justify the release of materials that could affect privacy or national security. That answer might work at a press briefing," Moskowitz objected. "But it doesn't work here." He leaned forward. "Privacy concerns do not justify censoring the same name on flight manifests, visitor logs, witness statements, and photographic evidence." Moskowitz reached into the folder again. He pulled out a color photograph, mounted on 8 by 10 cardboard. He lifted it slowly, giving the cameras time to focus. "This photo was taken at Mar-a-Lago in 1997, he said. "It's been public for years. Everyone has seen it." The image showed exactly what the public already knew. 2 men smiling, arms around each other's shoulders, relaxed, familiar, undeniably intimate. But Moskowitz was reaching for more. "These," he said, "are the ones the public hasn't seen." He pulled out a stack of additional photos, flipping through them. 32 photos from that night. Photos sitting in the FBI evidence vault. Photos you, Director Patel, refused to release. Patel's forehead glistened under the courtroom lights. Not figuratively, but visibly. A layer of sweat catching the reflections as it shifted. The congressman said, his voice strained. "The release of the investigation photos requires careful scrutiny so we don't jeopardize—" "What are you jeopardizing?" Moskowitz interrupted, slamming his hand on the table. The microphone jumped, its sharp sound echoing through the room. "Epstein is dead. Maxwell is in jail. There is no ongoing prosecution to jeopardize." Moskowitz stood up. I've been following 6 years of congressional hearings, and I've never seen this happen during questioning. The rules don't explicitly prohibit it, but the culture does. Standing up disrupts the illusion of order. Moskowitz didn't care. "Director Patel," he said, rising above the table, "I'm going to ask you a direct question. I want a yes or no answer. Did the FBI conduct any investigation under your leadership targeting individuals named in the Epstein documents?" The ensuing silence was total silence. 23 seconds passed. It was an eternity. Patel looked at his papers, looked at his lawyers. They offered nothing. He looked at his assistants. They looked into his arms. He was alone. "The FBI," Patel finally said, his voice close to a whisper, "follows all credible leads in accordance with established investigative priorities and resource allocation frameworks." Moskowitz laughed. Not humor, but a sharp tone of disbelief. "That's a no," he said. "You said no in 73 words. The hearing technically continued, but in reality, it was over. The damage was done. Within minutes, the clip exploded. Moskowitz shows Epstein evidence. Patel shocked. FBI Director unable to respond. Millions of views. Because Moskowitz didn't just ask questions, he presented evidence. Names, dates, photographs. And Patel couldn't deny any of it. He just remained silent. And that silence spoke louder than any admission. Don't miss this story. Subscribe and watch to see when the FBI will release the Epstein files and what Patel will do, because that red folder changed everything.